This week, I made a discovery. TikTok users, specifically older men on TikTok, defend their porn with their life. We're going to talk about that and also what is the ad that Fox wouldn't show you for Super Bowl this year. Then we're also going to talk about two new polls that came out that really show where Americans are on the issue of abortion. We're also going to talk about being pro life and if it's morally okay to have in vitro fertilization. And we're going to talk about the Dropbox, saving babies' lives. All that and more on this episode of Deconstructing the Culture. I am your host, Elisa Steele. Alrighty then, I'm going to officially clear the air because I've had so many people ask me. I'm just going to say it here once and for all, and hopefully everybody else asking will just find it here. I am on TikTok, not to ruin your experience there, but because that is where a lot of Gen Zers are. Now, if you're not familiar with what TikTok is, it's a new social media platform, well, relatively new compared to like Facebook. And a lot of very young users are on there. And I looked at it and I looked into it and I realized there were very few organizations there that I would follow anywhere else. They were not on TikTok. And I'm just thinking, wow, there's this huge market of young people. Why aren't we tapping into this more? Now, thank goodness Live Action joined TikTok and they're doing a kick butt amazing job, of course. And if you've been following that story, you know that they were briefly kicked off TikTok entirely. And this is unfortunately not unusual. Live Action, the largest pro life organization, they have been completely banned from Pinterest altogether, completely had their profile removed and told that they can't be on there. They've also been just crazy limited on Facebook and Twitter. On Twitter, they have been banned from running any kind of ads for years when Planned Parenthood and other pro abortion groups have very freely running ads. So when this came along with TikTok kicking Live Action off, it was right about the time, like maybe within like a day after I decided to join. So that really kind of spurred me on. And I'm like, no. This demographic, these young teenagers between the ages of 15 and 24 who are primarily on here, they need to hear the truth. They need to hear these serious subjects. And if they're not going to be on Instagram and Facebook, that's why I am there. I am there to try and influence that generation. And I hope I can do it in an entertaining way. But with that said, I did learn something new in my last, what, 5 or 6 days on TikTok. I made a video about pornography. It was 15 seconds long. I literally just says, or it literally just says, people think porn will spice up your love life. Well, it doesn't. The truth is, pornography that kills love. Very simple. 15 seconds, like I said. Wow, the hatred I got. Now, I'm not surprised by the hatred. I get hatred for lots of stuff all the time. I mean, death threats. It's just nothing new. But what surprised me was that I'll get absolutely crickets for saying anything about pornography on Instagram or Facebook, but on TikTok, it's like they never heard the message that pornography can be harmful. Not only that, but the people most vehemently and like digging in about pornography and how it's so good and so healthy for their relationship and their marriage or whatever were older men. Legitimately, you look at the comments even on Instagram, because there were a few haters on Instagram too, but specifically on TikTok, you look at it over and over and it was older men. And I don't even know their exact ages, and I'm not saying if you're however old these guys are, I'm guessing in their 50s or 60s, that's old. I'm just saying compared to the rest of the age demographic that is on TikTok, it is considered on the older side of that demographic. But what I am saying is you didn't even have to go look at their profile to see how old they were. They didn't even have to have profile picture. They were volunteering this information like, well there, honey, it's 20 years of marriage. I've proven you wrong, or 25 years of marriage, and I know better than science. It was like, what the heck? Wow. You are going to really come out and defend porn. People were even openly saying, you can go check the comments if you want. I think as of the date of this recording, it has over 200,000 views on TikTok, which blows my mind. I don't even get that many views on Instagram, okay? But people, if you look at their just vehemently angry comments, it's primarily from older gentlemen. And they're even saying things like, well, I'm not allowed to watch porn on my own, but I can watch it with my missus. It's like, oh, wow, is that sad? And no, I'm not going to back down from pornography and the harms that it causes, the fact that there is a strong correlation between pornography and the public health crisis that many of our youth, and even not just youth, but anyone, men and women, are suffering from the effects. The truth is, I've talked about this in other episodes, but very briefly, there is scientific research showing that pornography affects the brain in much the way hardcore drugs do. Just with the pleasure and reward centers in your brain, it can rewire your brain over time. It is very, very, very addictive and harmful. It has strong connections to anxiety and depression, and not to mention the fact that there is very, very clear and direct fueling between human trafficking and pornography. Speaking of human trafficking, also again in other episodes, if you want to hear more about this, I have a couple of episodes dedicated to the subject. Pornography kills love. If you look in my in my podcast topics, and No Porn November would be the most recent one, where you can hear all about this and the science and everything behind it. But today I'm actually wearing this in honor of the Super Bowl. My shirt, if you look on YouTube, it says "People are not products." And that is because, with the Super Bowl in mind and human trafficking is at its all-time peak in the United States um, during the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, as that is, and you know that I'm here in South Florida, and the Super Bowl was held in Miami this year. And thank God for organizations all over, from A21 to my local church to Operation Underground Railroad, who have been equipping many of the officials down here in Miami, and even filling hotel rooms with care packages and information, human trafficking hotlines to try and combat this. But it is a major problem, okay? People are not products. It is now the global industry is, like, I think the number 2 global industry in the world, and I think it's rivaling drugs at this point, because if you think about it, cocaine can be sold, a pound of cocaine can be sold one time, but a human being, a child in many cases, because there are 2 million children being trafficked in today's world, but a child or a human being, men and women, they can be sold 10, 20, 30 times in a 24-hour period, and that is not an exaggeration. So it is a huge problem. We need to look at it. We need to talk about it. We need to become more aware. I really recommend you go check out Operation Underground Railroad and Fight the New Drug to learn more about pornography and human trafficking and the link between the two. All right, now speaking of the Super Bowl, let's go ahead and talk about the ad that Fox wouldn't show you. Now, full disclosure, I record the podcast on Sunday, so this is happening basically about the same time as the Super Bowl. So if you want to hear my hot take breakdown on all the crazy ads that are bound to come out, I've heard there's even going to be a transgender ad this year, you're going to want to go over to TikTok. If you're already there, if you're not, it's a waste of time, don't go over there. Facebook, and specifically Instagram. In my Instagram stories, I'm going to be doing takedowns and deconstructions of all the crazy ads that we're going to see this year. So that's where you're going to find that information if you were hoping to hear that today. Now, an ad that I wish the Super Bowl had showed, or during Super Bowl time, I should say, I wish that Fox had showed, but unfortunately they didn't, is this very, very powerful ad campaign. It's titled, what did they title it? Choice isn't a word, it's a person. Choice isn't a word, it's a person. Think about that. So in an article here, actually from Stand to Reason, it's a blog from Stand to Reason, they wrote here, so we're so used to hearing people argue for, quote, choice, that I suspect many give little thought to the actual choice being made. An organization called Faces of Choice wants to change that by showing us the faces and stories of real abortion survivors who were victims of that word. From their website, a little caption from their website of Faces of Choice, they say, Faces of Choice was birthed to bring awareness to a demographic of survivors that has gone largely unnoticed, those who were aborted but survived. While highlighting a few of the thousands of stories of survivors of abortion who are living in the United States and throughout the world, we wish to emphasize the themes of hope, love, forgiveness, and often reconciliation, which characterizes their lives. Faces of Choice is in the news right now because after several months of attempted negotiations, Fox declined their request to purchase advertising time during the Super Bowl. Now, I'm going to actually play you a portion of their ad. You can kind of get an idea. And if you want to watch the whole thing, I'm actually going to link Choice Isn't a Word, It's a Person. I'm going to link their page in my description, so you can go check that out. I highly recommend it. I haven't watched all their videos, but I watched a handful, and they're very powerful, amazing stories of these human beings who are labeled a choice, but they're not a choice. They're human beings, and by calling them a choice, you're dumbing down the value of human life. So I'm going to show a little bit of that ad, and then yeah, for sure check out the full ad and their other stories on their YouTube channel.
Can you look me in the eye?
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that I shouldn't exist?
That I should be dead?
That I deserve to die that day.
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that my very survival was a mistake?
A terrible toll on society?
Can you look me in the eye and tell me that in my most vulnerable state, I was nothing more than a parasite?
A collection of body parts. Subhuman?
Worthless?
Really powerful ad, guys, and that is just a small portion of the full 2-minute ad. Again, please, I recommend. It's a very stirring ad, and as far as I can tell, and I think I was reading this somewhere, they don't use the word abortion one time. It's mostly just saying, okay, you're calling me a choice. And if you watch the rest of the video, they talk about which stage of trimester that they survived an abortion. And it kind of ends the video by saying, these are the people you would call a choice, but they're not choices, they're human beings. And it's just a beautiful, very powerful ad that really shows where the pro-life movement is going. We are going towards less gruesome and more just eye-opening, and education, I think, is beautiful. But yeah, that wasn't played during the Super Bowl, and I wish it would have. It would have been shown to millions of people, maybe would have made a few 100,000 people think twice, and maybe would have resonated with them. But unfortunately, Fox wouldn't show you that ad, but they'll show you other ads, which you will see me deconstruct on social media. Again, go check them out on Facebook. All right, now let's talk about these two most recent polls that come out that are really eye-opening and really show you where the American people are at. I find it to be somewhat encouraging. Obviously, we know that there is a large group of people in our country who are very pro-abortion, but what's fascinating and what you won't hear from the left or from your mainstream media is that many of those who would call themselves pro-choice, put quotes around that because I don't believe in calling them pro-choice, they're pro-abortion, but many of those who would call themselves pro-choice are actually still in favor of some regulation. In fact, most. So this is according to an article from Live Action. There are new polls that have once again found that the vast majority of respondents overwhelmingly support heavy restrictions on abortion. The Marist poll shows that 70% want abortion limited to the first trimester, including almost half of pro-choicers. Again, using the words pro-choicer, but I don't believe it's pro-choice, it's pro-abortion. Now, although I believe abortion at any point is inhumane and an atrocity in taking human life, it is encouraging to know that our fellow Democrats, or at least half of our fellow, I don't even want to say Democrats, half of our fellow human beings who do believe in abortion at least see the humanity in the later stages. And that can give us some courage. It gives us something to work with. Whereas when you're talking to someone and they straight up tell you, I'm okay with abortion up to all 9 months, right as the woman's in labor, just kill that baby. That is something that's very difficult to work with. Now, what's interesting is that's where all of our Democratic candidates, all of the candidates running for president right now, are all in favor of late-term abortion all the way up until birth. But half of their constituents don't feel that way, which I find to be encouraging because, again, I think it gives us room to work with those who maybe we don't see completely eye to eye, but we can find some kind of common ground and maybe work from there. If they believe in the humanity of a child at 8 months or 9 months, maybe over time with education, as I think we are seeing today, we can work that back to making abortion unthinkable, which is, of course, our end goal. Now, a new Marist poll found that 70% of respondents support significant restrictions, including limiting abortion to the first 3 months of pregnancy, the first trimester only. What's notable is that includes 47% of people who identify as pro-choice. The poll, which was sponsored by the Knights of Columbus, has been running for 12 years. The number of people who support abortion restrictions have been consistent each year. Pro-choice people are still supportive of significant restrictions on abortion, at most 3 months during pregnancy. Barbara Calavaro, director of Marist, told American Magazine. When we look at this issue, like many issues we see in the public debate, there is one side versus the other side, when in reality, I think the abortion issue is a very clear example of this. The Americans have a very nuanced understanding of the issue and want their public policy to reflect that as well. Again, this goes back to the fact that if you're a Democrat or left-leaning, you're faced with options with candidates who want abortion all the way up until the end, even if you don't agree with that, which I think is truly tragic. Other findings include that the majority of Americans oppose taxpayer funding of abortion, 60%, and eugenic abortions for Down syndrome, 65%, and support mandatory ultrasounds before abortion, 52%. Kaiser poll majority found favor requiring admitting privileges, waiting periods, and informed consent laws. And also, basically, at the end of this, I want us to remember that there are Americans who do want abortion to remain legal. We obviously know that's true. There's a very fierce battle raging right now, but they don't want it as widespread as the media might lead us to believe, first of all. And those who do believe in abortion really kind of do want some limits, and that it gives us hope to know that if at least half of those who call themselves pro-abortion, if they are open to seeing the humanity of a child later in life, we have room to work with them. We have room to continue to push those boundaries, continue to show the humanity of children. And, I just want to point out too that most, even pro-lifers, don't fully understand abortion, and they don't fully understand how they're performed. We have vague ideas because we've seen people talking about babies are being ripped apart or whatever it is on social media, but I would highly recommend that every single person, whether you are pro-life or pro-abortion, go to abortionprocedures.com and watch those videos. And I'm not going to explain exactly what they are, but they will blow your mind. I had my husband watch them because, as pro-life as he is, he didn't even know. The only reason why I know is because I volunteered at pregnancy centers in the past, and you go through courses where they explain and describe in detail what each abortion procedure does and at what stage and so forth. But most Americans, even pro-lifers, don't really know how abortion works. And it's very vital to us and changing our culture for us to understand how abortions work. So I'd really recommend you go to abortionprocedures.com. They're such powerful videos that Live Action has done man on the street videos where they will go interview someone. They'll hear that they're pro-choice or pro-abortion, and they'll say, hey, would you mind watching a video? They don't even argue with them or anything. Just have them watch this video. And it's amazing to watch these people's minds just change in an instant before you. Within 3 minutes, they've watched this video, and it's not even very graphic compared to what it could be. And they immediately tell you, actually, no. It's 180. They change their mind immediately, and they're like, wow, no, I'm against abortion. So go check it out, abortionprocedure.com. Really, really recommend it. You think you understand abortion, but you need to watch this anyways. All right. Now, before I continue on, I'm going to go ahead and answer a question that Trish asked me about in vitro fertilization. We're going to talk about Dropbox movie and Good in the World. I want to remind you to take a minute to please subscribe, leave a review. It's very important to myself and to the page and to this work continuing, to this podcast continuing. It means a lot. It helps a lot with iTunes rankings, especially if you're listening on iTunes. But no, wherever you're listening, please subscribe, leave a review. I had one review. I think maybe I'll try and read it to you next week. But I had one person leave a review and they said 5 stars up until I stopped listening or something. And she was talking about how she really liked my podcast. I'm assuming it's a she, but that she wasn't a fan of the fact that I listened to Ben Shapiro. Okay, that's fine. I do like Ben Shapiro. I think he's really smart. I don't agree with everything on him for sure. We very much disagree on essential oils and a lot of, and vaccinations. Quite frankly, I strongly disagree with him on vaccinations. If I was going to call myself a fan, like an actual fan, I'm trying to think of who it would be. Glenn Beck. I'm a fan. I'm a real, like, the few times I've met Glenn Beck, it's just like I don't even know what to say. He's amazing. I really like Glenn Beck too. So if you want to write a review on me and like say like, hey, I like her, but I can't stand that she likes Glenn Beck, or I can't stand that she likes Ben Shapiro, like, go for it. But hey, thanks to that subscriber, for that user or listener, for leaving 5 stars anyways. Appreciate it. Thanks for leaving your feedback. But it also, on a real and serious note, if you do have legitimate feedback like this girl did, she had some thoughts, I would really appreciate it if you actually just email me. I read all of my emails. If you're hateful, probably won't reply, but I might, who knows. But please send me an email if you have constructive criticism. Love to hear it. All right, now, after you subscribed and left a review and subscribed on YouTube, all that good stuff, I'm going to answer this question from Trish. She asked me, how am I pro-life? And like, how does that tie in with in vitro fertilization? Am I against it? And here's my answer. It's a yes and no answer, which unfortunately probably leaves things a little fuzzy. So I'm going to explain. I do think that we are having some terrible things happen in science with in vitro fertilization. As a Christian and as someone who believes in science, we know that life begins at conception. And we are having a lot of babies being conceived and then being thrown away or frozen, which I do have a problem with. So basically my take on in vitro fertilization, to put it really briefly, is you need it, go get it, but only fertilize the amount of eggs that you're willing to put into your body and leave there and let them grow. So don't go and fertilize, a dozen eggs and then only implant a few of them to see what happens or if they take. Like, I know this might not financially work, but from a moral standpoint, the best and only way to move forward with in vitro fertilization, if it's needed, is to fertilize as many eggs as you're willing to raise those babies. That's the hard truth. So that is how I am able to support people who want to do in vitro fertilization. I mean, I have 2 cousins whom I dearly love who were, they're only here because of in vitro fertilization. But I am very, very strong in my belief, just like it's got to make sense, it's got to correlate, it can't be hypocritical about it. So I do only believe in fertilizing the eggs that you're willing to implant and take care of and raise. All right, now let's talk about Dropbox. Now, the Dropbox is a video you can watch on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description as well. I highly recommend you watch it. I think it's like $4 to rent it, and it is truly profound. It's amazing. I actually watched this for the first time, I think back when it was on Netflix. I don't want to say for sure because I don't remember, but it was a long time ago. I think right after it came out. I think it came out in 2014, and I probably watched it around 2014. No, actually, I think it came out in 2015. So I probably watched it around 15, 16. And it really, really kind of left me speechless. And I just remember thinking at the time, wow, I want to be so pro-life and so willing to put my action where my heart is that I'm like Pastor Lee. So if you've not heard of the Dropbox, essentially every year, hundreds of babies are abandoned in South Korea. And actually in a specific town in South Korea. So Pastor Lee and his wife, they created the very first Dropbox for abandoned children in South Korea outside of, I don't know how to pronounce this, as Jursang, translates to God's Love Community Church. The Dropbox was modeled off the baby hatch or baby box. This is a sanctuary for babies who are abandoned by their mothers due to difficult circumstances. Available at all hours, the Dropbox is equipped with a monitor sensor, heat, light, and program to notify the pastor when a baby is placed inside. The sign is placed outside the baby box, roughly translates to place to leave babies. While the documentary was being filmed, Pastor Lee was the legal guardian of 19 children, 2 of them biological. Since the establishment of the Dropbox in 2009, this has, in this article that I'm reading to you from actually Wikipedia, they say that there's been over 600 abandoned children have received in the Dropbox. Since then, I have heard Pastor Lee speak personally, and is well over, I think he said 1,700 babies have been saved. But again, this is from memory because I heard him speak. And so I just know it's well over 600 babies. So I'm just going to say that because that's what they have documented here. But the documentary raises awareness about the difficulty of addressing the child abandonment issue in South Korea because of the unfortunate circumstances that often force parents to feel helpless and feel like they have no other option but to abandon their children. Several reasons for abandonment that were mentioned by the Dropbox include family pressure, lack of government assistance, financial issues, the social stigma against young single mothers, and it's also seen that many of the children that are under care at this community church have mental and physical disabilities. There is a huge, just deviating off this article for a second, from watching this, apparently there's a huge stigma around having mentally or physically handicapped children, and people are just ashamed, and so they get rid of their babies, or they'll leave them in dumpsters, or they'll just let them die. So it is a mercy and a beautiful thing when they are placed in this Dropbox for Pastor Lee to love and become father too. Pastor Lee's dedication for his children and his church were seen in the Dropbox, and his efforts were were well received by the public. After the release of the Dropbox, donations to this community church and adoption agencies in South Korea allowed Pastor Lee and the church under his care to relocate to a much needed larger space. For a while, he was just in his home. He literally had dozens of children in his 2-story little home. So thank God, because of this and because of the media exposure, he was able to go to a much larger space, and the former community church was converted into a maternity shelter for mothers in crisis. Now, I'm going to play you a little bit of the trailer, and then I'm going to tell you the special part of Dropbox in this movie and why I bring it to your attention specifically in this episode. So here's a little bit of the trailer, and then we're going to talk more.
The baby box is South Korea's first and only box to collect abandoned infants.
Hundreds of unwanted babies are abandoned on the streets of Seoul, South Korea every year.
Tragic loss of life moved the pastor to set up a way for saving unwanted babies.
Even if there's just one person that really cares about children, it makes such a difference.
They're just human beings, just like anyone else. They have the right to live.
이제 이 문제가 한국만의 문제가 아니고 이제는 아마 세계적으로 이 아이들이 이렇게 밖에 버려서 희생당하는 아이들이 많으니까.
But these children, they're helpless, they're voiceless. Who's going to speak for them?
이 아이를 보내면서 다시 한번 내가 헌신을 했어요. 하나님, 이 아이들을 위해서 내가 죽겠습니다. 믿음, 소망, 사랑 중에 그 중에 제일은 사랑이라고 했어요.
So this is just a small part of the trailer. There's a lot of it I didn't insert because you'd have to read it because it's in Korean, and that's not fair to those of y'all who are listening on iTunes. But please go check out the full trailer and watch it. Like I said, I put the link to Amazon in there. Now, the reason why I bring this up today specifically is last week, actually, I'll try not to get emotional, but last week I had the honor of being able to see Dr. Lee in DC, and he was receiving an award for the beautiful, life-saving, life-giving, God-ordained work that he does. And I wanted so badly to meet him, but it was a crazy night, and there were so many people there who wanted to meet him, of course. And I thought, okay, wow, that's too bad. But wow, how cool it is that I got to see him receive this award. And I never in a million years, when I first watched this documentary years ago, thought I would be able to meet this incredible man who has been one of the most inspiring people to me in this movement. I just thought, if one man can make such a massive difference, what could we all do if we all acted as bravely as he did? And so I feel like God just had a plan, because crazy enough, I got invited that night to a dinner the next night that was staff for the organization hosting that. And I didn't know he was going to be there, but I showed up for dinner the next night, didn't think really much of it. And I saw him there, and I was like, it was a very small gathering of maybe 20 to 30 people. And I finally got a chance to meet him, speak to him through his translator. And I'll show you a picture here in just a second of the two of us together when we're making the, I don't know if it's Korean specifically, but like the symbol for a heart, for like love. You put your two fingers together and it like makes the bottom part of a heart, I guess. And I feel bad because now the only picture I have with him, I have like a red face and red eyes, because literally all I could say when I'm talking to this man who's inspired me so much in the last few years is just tell him thank you. And I'm like crying again. Holy cow. But he is such an inspirational man, and I cannot believe just what God is doing through him, and the fact that one man can make such a significant difference for so many. And I hope someday to be half the woman, half the person that he is, the man that he is. And so the one picture I have with him, I'm a mess and I'm losing it, as you can see. And I was tearing up in my picture with him because all I could tell him was thank you for what you're doing, thank you for being inspiring, thank you for sharing your story, just thank you. I didn't even say all that. I just said thank you because that's all I could say. I was losing it. But truly inspiring, incredible man. If you watch any, documentaries ever at all, this is the one. And if you don't, make an exception for this one. It's worth the $3.99 on Amazon to watch it. Just saying. So just a shout out to Pastor Lee. Not that he'll ever see this or hear this, because he doesn't speak English, as far as I know. But he's an incredible man, and I really highly recommend you see how you can give to their work, or just anything that moves you or inspires you. If this man can inspire you even just a little bit to act on what you know is right, to act on what you know is the correct thing to do with our life, and that is to take care of and provide for the small, the little, the innocent and less fortunate around us. All right, so now let's talk about good in the world. And I love this story because I literally saw this story like right after, and it was in the news this last week. So good in the world, ending on good in the world, is months after a student worked really hard. It was his senior project. He worked really hard, like raking leaves and doing yard work and gathering scrap metal when he was, here we go. The efforts, he was a high school senior. His name is Hunter Wart. He's 19 years old, and he raised $10,000 for a baby box to be installed in his hometown. According to CNN, Wart spent more than a year mowing lawns and scrapping metal to raise the $10,000 needed to purchase a safe haven baby box for the Seymour Fire Department as part of his senior project. The Seymour box is one of 20 boxes throughout the state placed by the nonprofit organization Safe Haven Baby Boxes, who was started by resident Monica Kelsey, who herself was abandoned as an infant. And just recently, a newborn baby girl was saved after she was surrendered in the Safe Haven Baby Box in Indiana on Thursday, actually. So this girl's rescue, the first in this location, comes less than a year after the box was installed, and the surrender was the 5th time that a baby has been placed into a baby box in Indiana in the last 2 years. That's 5 lives. And we might sometimes get a little wrapped up in the numbers of abortion and how drastic and horrible and tragic they are, but just think about those 5 lives that were saved. Even if this boy's efforts of $10,000 and lots of hard work, even if all that ever came to was one baby girl being saved, wouldn't that be worth it? What if we could all work as hard as this high school senior to put together a project that would save even one life, but I can guarantee you this is going to probably save more than one life in its lifetime of having a baby box. The rescue happened at 1:30 p.m. at Seymour Fire Station, according to Chief Brad Lucas. An alarm sounded as soon as the mother opened the box door, and the baby was retrieved less than 60 seconds later. She was transported to a local hospital. The system worked perfectly, Lucas said. We had firefighters in the building, and an ambulance was on the scene within minutes. The baby was transferred to the hospital and is doing great. We are proud to have the resources available for the residents of Seymour, and we strive every day to ensure the safety of our residents. And this is just a way to ensure the safety of newborns. This is a beautiful story to me, not just because a life was saved, which is huge, but the fact that it came in such a beautiful way by one high school senior who wanted to make a difference and made his senior project meaningful. This means so much to me, and it makes me feel the warm and fuzzies, so I hope you feel the warm and fuzzies too. All right, all that and so much more is going to be covered on Instagram Monday and Tuesday. We're going to talk more about the Super Bowl, so if you're on TikTok, find me there. You can get outraged about porn too if you want, or you can just follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we'll talk about a lot. So many good things. All those good things come to those who wait. So I'll see you on the flip side. I was going to say flippity flip, and then it just came out weird, and it's just not even natural because I don't say that, but I will see you soon, either in next week's podcast or on social media. Have a blessed week. God bless you. God bless America. Hey there. So you're at the end of the podcast, and I'm going to ask you to please, if you haven't already, subscribe and leave a review. And if you've already done those two things and you're like, Lisa, I hear you say that every week, and I've already done that. What else do you want me to do? This is the time I would like to tell you what else I'd like you to do. No, I'm being serious though. Please share this with a friend, with a like-minded friend, or maybe a friend who doesn't know much about the pro-life movement, or doesn't know much about the conservative movement. Maybe as an introduction, maybe to someone who is a tried and true conservative, who you just feel like our personalities might resonate. Who knows? But I'm asking you to please take that next step and go ahead and share this with a friend or two or a dozen. I don't care. Actually, maybe 30, however you want. You be generous. You decide. All right. Thanks. Bye.